All right, Commanders fans, we just got done witnessing Washington Commanders quarterback Sam Howell do everything a quarterback can possibly do in a single NFL game, and his team won in spite of all of it. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Commanders fans, to this live Locked On Commanders episode, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day, and especially joining me live here at FedEx Field following a Washington Commanders 20-16 win over the Arizona Cardinals to start off the season. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube here if you're joining me live, or you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching, if you're listening to this after the fact, greatly appreciate all of you for coming through, and you continue this conversation with me. And believe me, there's a mixture of group therapy here and Victory Monday in this episode. And my Locked On Commanders insiders, we were texting back and forth about it as it was going on. And if you want to get in on all of that, sometimes fun, sometimes a little bit less fun, but sometimes fun, head over to join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. And you can go directly with me during press conferences, during practices, during games, especially when you just talk about football. Talk about anything you really want to. Of course, I'm your host, David Harrison, on Twitter at DHarrison82, credential member of the media covering your Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommandersCountry.com. CommanderCountry.com. There's no S in the URL, just CommanderCountry.com. Here with you every Monday through Friday, and also here with you for bonus episodes. We had a bonus episode on Saturday. This is technically a bonus episode post game day. It's called a postcast here at the network, but coming to you live from FedEx Field. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. On today's episode, I am handing out week 1 game balls because the Washington Commanders won. So game balls go out when we win, when the team wins, when everybody wins. The Commanders, we get game balls. So we're going to hand out some game balls. We're going to discuss my initial thoughts on Washington's offense, defense, special teams, and especially quarterback Sam Howell, our first regular season Howell watch of the year. But first, a little segment I'm going to dub right off the top, right? Here's what I'm thinking immediately following the game. And guys, I literally wrote down these 3 notes to discuss with you guys right off the top of this episode because I want to give you my initial just kind of raw opinions or analysis, whatever you want to dive into it and call it, right? Before I break down the numbers, before I go through and watch the film, watch the game again, I like to watch the broadcast version because I don't watch broadcast, right? So I like to watch the broadcast version, then I watch all 22, and then sometimes I go back and watch all 22, depending on what happens in the conversations that I have, right? So right off the top, first 3 observations following this game. Sam Howell was nervous. I think, honestly, I don't know if Sam would admit it. I honestly thought about asking him that during the press conference, but I was like, I'm not going to put him in that situation right off the bat. But I think Sam Howell was nervous. I think he came in, the edges, excitement, anxiousness, whatever you want to dub it, whatever you want to call it. I think at the end of the day, there were just a lot of emotions here with this first week, with all the changes coming through. And honestly, look, there's a little bit of pressure here, right? Well, I would say a little bit. There's a lot of pressure here. There's a lot of expectation that the page is turning, the dark cloud is lifting and moving on from over the Washington Commanders franchise and over FedEx Field, right? It's a new day. The sun is out and the sun is shining. And when you're the quarterback of that new day, you've got to make sure you bring it. Now, we've all been giving, and I say we as in media members, a lot of my listeners, a lot of my viewers, Sam Howell, a lot of credit for smart decision-making, looking maybe a little bit more mature than his years. But I think today, that inexperience, that youthfulness in his career so far, I think it showed a little bit. And then as things kind of started snowballing and going poorly, you had the AG fumble, you had the interception, and then you had the strip sack fumble. I think he just kept trying to make it work. And if you go back to last year, Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, that's exactly what we've been talking about. We wanted to avoid in this version of the Washington Commanders quarterback room, right? We want to avoid that desire to, we blew up Metropolis, so let's be Superman. Let's bring in a new city all in one fell swoop and completely act like it never happened. That's not going to happen. You got to let the last play go, come in with the next play and execute. And I think Sam knows that in his head, right? But in the middle of the action, obviously that did not translate. A lot of holding the ball way too long, extending plays, way too long. And I mean, doing that just, led directly to that strip sack. So that's number one. I do believe that Sam Howell was nervous. I asked him a lot about the emotions in his post-game press conference. I'll go through and I'll clip some of the questions I asked him, some of the questions I asked Ron Rivera, and I'll share those on Monday in our AAR episode that's going to come out tomorrow afternoon, early evening after we get done Ron Rivera's press conference. So that's point number one. I just think the mentality of Sam Howell, I think, call him shook, call him nervous, call him anxious, whatever you want to call it. I think the emotional baggage, the emotional weight of the moment got the best of Sam in a lot of points. Point number two, Washington's defense was the hero, right? And this is what we've talked about all offseason, all preseason, that this defense, top 13 in scoring last year, number one in a lot of metrics. I think third down, red zone. I mean, just one of the best defenses in the National Football League last year. Really looks like it only got better. We were hoping that the health of Chase Young would contribute to that improvement. But bottom line is, if Cody Barton can be Cole Holcomb or better, then that's an improvement for what it's worth, right? Emmanuel Forbes hopefully coming in and lending some better or some additional talent to the secondary. Quan Martin made a couple special teams play, one penalty, and then one good play on a punt coverage. So, but Washington's defense really showed here in week one that they can be a hero. Now, granted, it came against Joshua Dobbs and an Arizona Cardinals team that is expected to have the number one overall pick, maybe the number one and number two overall picks in the 2024 NFL draft. But you play who you play. The opponent on the field is who the opponent on the field is. And at least today, at least in week one, that defense was an absolute hero and stud, and some heroes and studs coming from within the defense as well that we'll talk about as we get into this program. Third observation right off the top, Commanders fans, y'all are impatient, man, but you're also forgiving. And I think this team, I think the coaches understand it. I think the players understand it. I think up here in the press box, everybody understands it. But yeah, this sold out crowd, man. I mean, the sold out crowd did not come here to watch this team struggle against what is expected to be the worst team in the National Football League. Bottom line, up front, I had multiple subtexters telling me, like, this is not good. We've got a comment in the live chat that was a huge L. I don't care what the box score shows. That was as bad as it gets without the official loss coming from Patriot Clips. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to feel like that. You know what I mean? Jay Martell coming through. David, we back up and we got a lot of things to discuss, the good and the bad. Yeah, there's a lot of good. Well, there's some good. There's a lot of bad to talk about, right? I think to a man, every player, every coach talked about taking that bad, getting better from it, moving on from week one into week two on the road against the Denver Broncos, trying to go 2-0. But the fans here, there were moments of booze. There were moments where, you can just kind of feel the energy dying down. You can feel the excitement kind of getting sucked out the stands, but y'all never left. You know what I mean? Whether you were here or not, Commanders fans that were here in attendance FedEx Field, they represent this fan base, and they were here. You know what I mean? They were in the stands when it was pouring down rain. Sure, some people fled for cover, and there's no shame in that. But the seats were mostly full. And when a good play happened, you know what I mean? It could be 3 bad plays and a good play. When that good play happened, this fan base let them know we appreciate that good play. And then as the lead got taken back over, and as the clock wound down, and as the game came to a close, I did a little Locked On Now for our post game, national shows here on the network, and I did it with the fans exiting the stadium behind me, and those fans sounded excited and sounded appreciative and sounded happy that there was a win, even if it was an ugly win. So, Commanders fans, y'all are impatient, but you're forgiving, and you're willing to allow people to earn your trust back, even if it is within a 1-game stance. So that's my 3 right off the top. Again, every post-game, post-cast episode, that's what I'm going to start off every show with, 3 right off the top observations of the team. No deep dive analysis, just kind of raw opinions coming from the game. Now let's dive into the shallow end of the player performance. But we're going to start getting into some numbers. We're not going to break them down too deep, but we're going to get into some of the numbers that happened in week one. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're going to do that today thanks to our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, guys, come back here now for Locked On Commanders every day. Again, thank you for coming through on a consistent basis like you do, and thank you to everybody making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view of the day, especially joining me live here at FedEx Field following the Washington Commanders 20-16 Week 1 win over the Arizona Cardinals. 1-0 is 1-0 is 1-0. Don't like it. Nobody honestly likes it. Ron Rivera was visibly unhappy with his team's performance following the game, but at the end of the day, you'd rather be disappointed in your performance, looking to get better for Week 2 with a win in your back pocket versus doing it with a loss. I can tell you right now, and if you're concerned that maybe this team is going to take the win and say, we're good. They're not. None of these guys are doing that. They all understand that this is a game that they should have probably lost, and they're looking to get better within a week's time by the time we get to Denver. So Howell watch, very popular during training camp, very popular during preseason, may not be as popular here today given what happened on the field, but we are going to do our first regular season Howell watch. Overall, Sam Howell, 19 for 31, 202 yards, a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, an interception, a fumble. Like I said, literally doing everything in a game that an NFL quarterback can do, and that includes having a drive where he was 100% 3 for 3 on the drive, and then there was also a drive where he completed no passes whatsoever except for one to the opposition. So starting out the game, Sam Howell 4 for 6, 21 yards, resulted in a punt, but a midfield punt. So they get the ball at their own 25-yard line to start the game. They did drive the ball to midfield. You want to see them get points on the board, of course, if we can. But at the end of the day, they moved the ball, got a couple of first downs, punted to win. You kind of look at it and say, okay, cool. Like, we got our first drive of the season in. Let's get some of the nerves shaken out, and let's come back and do some good things. Very next drive, Sam Howell goes 3 for 3. Only completes 16 yards worth of air yards on that 3 for 3 drive, but it's all he needed to find Brian Robinson for a 7-yard touchdown. The Washington Commanders offense aided by over 60 yards of penalties from the Arizona Cardinals, including some personal fouls that those Cardinals players will be paying for out of their pockets. I promise you that. Very next drive, this is where things kind of started to go rough. 0 for 1 on the drive in total, but he did complete one pass to an Arizona Cardinals defender for an interception, the first turnover of the game for the Washington Commanders, but they weren't done. Very next drive, Sam Howell goes 3 for 3, 37 yards, gets the Commanders offense in the scoring position. Everything looks like it's going well. Antonio Gibson fumble bug comes back to bite them in the butt. I think it was at the Arizona 12 that he fumbled the ball. So 2 possessions in a row, third and fourth possessions of the game, turned over by the offense. Fifth drive of the game, 1 for 2. Sam Howell goes for 12 yards, ends up in a punt, and then he goes 1 for 3 with another fumble, the strip sack fumble that ends up getting picked up by an Arizona Cardinals linebacker, and he literally just said, I'm super tall, I'm going to fall down, and I'm going to fall into the end zone, probably for his first and maybe likely only touchdown of his career. 7th drive of the game before halftime, 3 for 6 on that drive, 69 yards, culminating in a field goal. And that field goal, I'm going to tell you right now, in the press box anyway, and with some of my subtexters, we're kind of sitting there saying, you know what? It's good that you get that field goal. You want a touchdown, but it's good that you get that field goal. Get those points on the board. Kind of go into the halftime with something to talk about, something to build upon. And they came out as a team, not completely as the offense, but as a team, and did the job in the second half. Second half started off 2 for 2 on the 8th drive of the game, 11 yards. That resulted in a punt, another punt following a 1 for 3 drive on the 9th drive of the game. And then really from the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th drives of the game, Sam Howell throws 2 more passes, completes one of those, and then rushes for a touchdown as well. I asked Sam Howell about that rushing touchdown because that celebration was right. The end zone that he went into, the press box is right up above that at that side of the end zone in the corner there. So when he threw that ball at the wall, like I could dead see him in the face. And I just a lot of emotions there. I asked him about that. I'll share that clip with you guys tomorrow on my AAR episode of Locked On Commanders. So look, Sam after the game talked about the offensive struggles, talked about his own struggles personally, acknowledged that they all have to get better. The offense in general, him specifically, because in this game, if it wasn't Sam Howell throwing a tip drill interception or getting strip sacked for an opposing touchdown, it was AG fumbling, Logan Thomas dropping passes early, holding penalties on successful Sam Howell scrambles. So it was just one thing after another with the offense that ultimately led to a lot of struggles. And I think that everybody's going to agree the win is good, but do we have to make it this painful? Like, do we have to make this difficult? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really like, yeah, you did the job, but does it have to be that dramatic? You know what I mean? I think that's really what's going to happen. Virginia Slim, absolutely. The crowd here, absolutely represented. I was walking around the crowd earlier. We did some interviews with some legends. I'm going to try to get some clips and share some of those with you guys. Some Champ Bailey, Robert Griffin III, Joe Theismann was here. I mean, I can't even, like, Clinton Portis was here, Tim Hightower. Like, there's a lot of guys walking around. So I'll share some of those with you guys as I can get through the week as well. But yeah, the crowd absolutely. I met multiple. I mean, more than I can count now. Locked On Commanders listeners, Commanders fans. So I appreciate you guys as always. If you see me, stop me, say hi. I want to thank you for letting me do this. Like, you guys afford me to do this. Like, I'm not here if it's not for you. So believe me, as much as you say you appreciate me, believe me, I appreciate you. My wife doesn't, because I'm gone all the time, but I appreciate you. So I want you to know that I appreciate all of you. So some other offensive observations. The offensive line. Right off the top, right? Again, kind of right off the top. Haven't watched the film, haven't rewatched the broadcast, anything like that. So all of my observations are literally, I saw a play, boom, once, it's over. Don't see it again. You know what I mean? We move on. I don't know that a single sack today was on the offensive line. Honestly, I don't know that a single sack was on the offensive line. I can tell you right now, there's not a single sack that I looked at in real time and said, that's on the offensive line. Now, again, I could be wrong once I rewatch it. And if there's one specifically that you think is specifically on the offensive line, by all means, let me know and I'll make sure I pay attention to that. But I think that overall, the offensive line did well. And I think that when we came into this game, the offensive line was a huge question mark, even concern. But I think coming out of it, we should feel a little bit more confident. Again, Cardinals defense front, not exactly supposed to be world beaters, but I think you still like the performance that you got from the Commanders offensive line. Sam Cosmi did get evaluated for a concussion at one point. I don't know if that was said over the television broadcast, but he was eventually cleared. I think he missed about a handful of snaps. Ricky Stromberg came in and did an okay enough job anyway while he was in there. Antonio Gibson, he's got the fumble, the earlier fumble, not the strip sack touchdown fumble, obviously, but the other earlier fumble with the team in scoring position. Fortunately, he was able to kind of shake that off a little bit, did make some solid plays for the offense coming down the stretch. He did talk about that. I do have it on my phone. He's very soft-spoken. Hopefully, I was close enough that I got the audio. If I did, I will share it with you. If I did not, I'll find a buddy. I'll at least tell you what he said, because he is very. I've taken some videos of AG before that I was not able to use because of how soft-spoken he is. It's okay. It's just who he is, right? Brian Robinson, far out touch all over the backs. We talked all off season. If we talked about fantasy and all that stuff, it was like, both guys are going to be options. Nah, man. Brian Robinson, 19 touches. I think the second leading running back had 4 or 5. I didn't write it down. I don't have the game book in front of me, but I guess the downside of that is 19 carries, 59 yards. Running on them. Brian said that he thought the offensive line did an okay job. There's some things that he can improve on. There's some things that certainly they can improve on as well. I wanted to talk to Nick Gates before he got out of here, but he wasn't getting dressed, so I had to leave. And before he was dressed, I'll try to hit him up in the locker room this week and talk to him. Always enjoy talking to Nick Gates. Sorry for sniffing into the microphone. Robinson did have one catch, hour, for 7 yards and a touchdown. So if you have him on your fantasy team, that probably saved your day. You're probably a little bit mad at B-Rob if not for that reception, those yards, and that touchdown. Leading receiver was a tie between Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson. Each of them had 5 catches apiece. Samuel led the team with receiving yards, with 54. Terry McLaurin, 2 catches, 31 yards. But Terry McLaurin was the target on a 37-yard DPI that would have been a 37-yard completion plus some, right? So certainly, this offense creating some opportunities. Again, we had some drops earlier in the game. That certainly we can see things get improved upon. So not all bad, not all great, certainly not perfect by a long shot, but there were some good things. Speaking of good things, we're not forgetting about the defense. That is coming up next on this episode of Locked On Commanders, and we're going to do that thanks to our friend over at FanDuel. If you took my advice and you bet the money line, I told you not to mess with the spread. If you went money line on the Washington Commanders, you made money. So that'll make you happy if the performance didn't make you happy. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. I took advantage of that. I had Red Zone playing on my iPad while we're going through the game. When I had a minute, I looked down on it. Didn't have a lot of minutes. Didn't really see a whole lot of highlights either, to be honest with you. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the National Football League. All right, let's wrap up this episode of Locked On Commanders live from FedEx Field following the Washington Commanders 20-16 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Talking about defense, talking about special teams. Defense, the hero of the day. As bad as Sam Howell's day was, he did have a 77.6 quarterback rating. That's not very good. Joshua Dobbs finished with a quarterback rating barely better than Sam Howell's. And Joshua Dobbs didn't throw an interception. He did have a fumble, but I don't think that really impacts the quarterback rating. Didn't have an interception. Also didn't throw any touchdowns, right? But 78.2, I think, was Joshua Dobbs' QBR. Either way, less than a full point better than Sam Howell. So that's really kind of what the defense did to him, because Josh Dobbs actually threw 30 passes, only had 9 incompletions, but he only completed 21 passes for 132 yards and nothing else. Again, not a touchdown and not even like a close touchdown. You know what I mean? Like nothing happening for the Arizona Cardinals passing game. The defense did drop a couple of interceptions. Ron Rivera did talk about during his post-game press conference. I think I tweeted out a portion of his post-game press conference. Not sure if that was what it was. If not, I'll try to share that with you guys tomorrow. But he did talk about wanting to make sure they take advantage of those opportunities. They took advantage of some fumble opportunities, which is great. But you want to see Cam Curl come up with one. I can't remember who the other one that dropped an interception opportunity was right now. It's in my notebook somewhere. But a couple of dropped interception opportunities. So you want to see those guys come through, especially Cam Curl, man. We want to see you get paid, so we want to see you come up with those interceptions. Cam Curl, however, did lead the team in tackles with 10 total, 8 solo. Montez Sweat had 5 total sacks, or total tackles. Felt like he had 5 sacks, right? 5 total tackles, 4 solo tackles, and he came away with 1.5 sacks. And not to throw shade, full honesty, this is not to throw shade. 1.5 sacks, the same amount of sacks Chase Young had his last healthy season before he got injured through 8.5 games. Just for relativity speaking. That's all that's for, because we're going to talk about Montez Sweat and Chase Young a lot, I think, next offseason. John Allen had a sack. Abdullah Anderson came through with half a sack. Montez also forced 2 fumbles, recovered. One was recovered by Deron Payne, another one by Abdullah Anderson, respectively. And I think, we got to talk Montez Sweat more here in just a little bit. So we'll come back to that. Special teams, Joey Slye 2 for 2 on both field goals and extra points. So 4 kicks total, all 4 made. 3, 6, 7, 8 points contributed by Joey Slye. Tress Way punted 6 times for 266 yards, averaging 44.3 yards per punt, with 3 of those bad boys landing inside the 20. That's why he's the team captain. That's why he's the best punter in the National Football League. Jamison Crowder, his first week called up from the practice squad since being added as a wide receiver veteran, returned 3 punts for 10 yards, 1 fair catch, and a long of 5 yards. So, hey, only 1 fair catch. No touchdowns, no super exciting returns, right? But only 1 fair catch. I think that's what a lot of people want to see. That's what Jamison Crowder delivered. Game balls. Before you get the game balls, let me scan through the live chat here real quick. Got to see the crowd for myself. You absolutely do. It was a great thing, and I'm hoping Commanders fans are going to come through when Buffalo comes through here in a couple of weeks, because Buffalo fans, they travel like a mug. So I hope that you guys do, I won't say do a good job, because it's not your job to come out here, but hopefully we see a lot more burgundy than we do whatever their color of red is. Adam says Howell looked raw and could tell it was his first game as QB1. O-line looked horrible. That's interesting, because I thought they actually looked decent. So I'll have to take another look at it. Like I said, I think we should have drafted more O-line in the draft. I mean, if you're an everydayer, if you're an every monther, going back to the draft process, you already know I had O-linemen projected sometimes in the first, sometimes in the second, certainly higher than the third. But hey, it is what it is. And I think that, again, hopefully we're at least seeing progress as we get through. Denver is going to present a bigger challenge, certainly, and then Buffalo after them. Sam held on the ball a lot. Hazard Arcade, absolutely. You can write that twice in the comments here. You got to think mostly it was Sam trying to do a little too much. Absolutely. I agree with you there. Howell looked raw. Yes, sir. For those saying C-Rod is going to be RB1 in 5 weeks. I don't know who was saying C-Rod, Chris Rodriguez Jr. is going to be RB1 in 5 weeks. I like Chris as much as next guy. I talked to him a little bit off the record in the locker room. Certainly do. I will tell you this, though. I did kind of pat myself on the back to other media members a little bit when Chris Rodriguez got in there as a fullback. I've been telling people Chris Rodriguez can do that fullback thing. So don't sleep on Chris Rodriguez. He's not always going to take running back snaps. He can do that fullback thing, and he did it early on. More Montez Sweat and John Allen, please. Yes, absolutely. And more Commanders fans coming through. I appreciate all of you. Game ball time. Number 1 game ball. I mean, it's got to be Tez. It has to be Montez Sweat. There's nobody else other than Montez Sweat. Like, without Montez Sweat, the Commanders lose this game. Like, honestly, like, hands down, it's a team sport. Without Montez Sweat, the Commanders lose this game. Montez Sweat, sack and a half, a lot more disruptive than that. I do want to give a tip of the cap to James Smith-Williams. Casey Hill also combined in there to replace Chase Young this week. They did a very good job. James Smith-Williams blew up a screen pass early in the game that, without him blowing it up with pressure on Dobbs, probably would have been completed, probably wouldn't have been a first down. And again, we don't know what Arizona would have done with it, but it would have been a conversion, one more conversion than they allowed. As it was. As I was walking in the locker room, Montez Sweat's locker is like right on the left side. I saw him sitting in there. He was still getting chased, no official interviews, nothing. But I just kind of said, "You making some money today, Montez or Tez?" And he kind of just smiled and kind of, humble. He's a humble guy, right? You believe that, Montez Sweat, humble. Certainly game ball number 2. He actually got a game ball. Josh Harris. Look, you guys are obviously responding, and I think some of it isn't necessarily what Josh and the group are doing, and more so just the fact that it's somebody else. Granted, but I also think you guys are responding to a little bit what Josh is doing. He's dumping a lot of money. I say dumping, but that's not derogatory. He's putting a lot of money into his organization, putting a lot of money into FedEx as best we can. There was a leak going on, and from my understanding, like team officials were actually like, we want to take a note of that leak because the ownership group wants to know about it. Hopefully, if you're the unlucky fan that was getting leaked on, because again, sold out stadium, you couldn't move. There's no other seat for you to go to. Hopefully, that means that in future iterations, you come to the stadium, you won't get leaked on, right? And then finally, Commanders fans. It's a little cheesy, maybe, right? But you guys deserve a lot of credit. You guys have been through a lot. I've not been secretive about this. I did not grow up a Washington fan. Truth be told, I didn't grow up having a favorite NFL team. My favorite football team of all time is overseas in Germany. So getting to know fan bases, right? The first fan base I got to work with, the first team I got to cover in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, certainly a fan base that has been through a lot. But then when I get on this beat 3 years ago, you guys have gone through a lot, been going through a lot, and I've only had to deal with the last 2 years, with you, and already like just feeling that 2 years, I can't even imagine what some of y'all have been through. So the fact that this place was sold out and it was all burgundy, it was all like there was a couple Cowboys fans, couple Eagles fans, but it was burgundy through and through here. I think I saw like 4 Cardinals shirts. You know what I mean? You guys really came through. You guys been to all the events. You guys been in training camp. So as we get this season rolling, man, I appreciate you greatly. I know the players do, on camera, off camera, behind the scenes. They talk about how great it is to have you guys back. So again, not the cleanest win in the world, certainly not a perfect win, but hopefully the beginning of something better, right? Let's see improvement week 2 in Denver. I get to go home for a couple days. The Commanders get to come visit my hometown, and hopefully we all get to come back here celebrating a victory in week 2, 2-0, to welcome the Buffalo Bills into hopefully another packed FedEx field. Give these guys that home field advantage. Coming up tomorrow, we've got a press conference with Ron Rivera at 3:00 in the afternoon. I do plan on packing my recording equipment, taking it up with me to Ashburn, and dropping my AAR episode as soon as we're done with Ron Rivera. I'm going to record it, and then because the audio there is terrible, so I got to edit it, I got to polish it all up and all that stuff. So in the meantime, if you got questions, comments, again, if you got specifics, if you think the O-line was terrible, if you got specific plays that come to mind, you don't have to timestamp them. Just kind of tell me like, the second quarter, there was like a play where they did this. I'll figure it out. You got questions, comments, throw them in the YouTube comments. Hit me on Twitter at DHarrison82. Email me at lockedoncommanders@gmail.com, or become a Locked On Commanders insider. Text me directly from your handy dandy cell phone. Join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. First 2 weeks are free, so we can get you through the first quarter of the season almost for absolutely free. If you like it, you stick around. If you don't, I appreciate you giving it a try anyways. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thank you for coming through on a consistent basis like you do. Now I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to drive 2 hours home so I can see my wife a little bit before I have to get up at 5:00 in the morning to do work all over again. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day, part of your football routine. And until we see each other again, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time right back here for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.